What if I told you one of the most popular hair loss treatments costs thousands of dollars, involves needles in your scalp, and still doesn't fix the real cause of hair loss? And what if a simple trace mineral could quietly do more for your hair than that expensive procedure? Let's talk about the truth behind PRP versus zinc and which one actually works best. PRP, or platelet-rich plasma, sounds very advanced. The idea is simple. Blood is drawn, spun down, and the platelet-rich portion is injected into the scalp to stimulate hair follicles. Platelets contain growth factors, so the promise is better blood flow, better signaling, and stronger hair growth. And yes, some people do see short-term improvement, but here's the key thing most people are not told. PRP does not correct why the hair follicle became weak in the first place. Hair loss is not a surface-level problem. It's a metabolic and nutritional issue. Hair follicles are among the fastest dividing cells in the body. That means they are extremely sensitive to deficiencies, stress hormones, inflammation, and insulin resistance. If those underlying problems are still there, PRP becomes a temporary bandage rather than a solution. Now let's talk about zinc. Zinc is not trendy, it doesn't sound high-tech, but biologically it's absolutely critical for hair growth. Zinc is required for keratin production, which is the structural protein of hair. Without enough zinc, hair strands become thin, brittle, and slow-growing. Zinc is also essential for DNA replication and cell division, which directly affect how well hair follicles regenerate. Here's something very important. Zinc helps regulate DHT at the follicle level. DHT is one of the main drivers of pattern hair loss. Zinc doesn't completely block DHT like drugs do, but it helps modulate it naturally, while supporting the enzymes needed for healthy follicle function. That's a big difference. Another overlooked role of zinc is immune balance. Many forms of hair loss are linked to chronic inflammation or immune dysfunction in the scalp. Zinc stabilizes immune responses and reduces inflammatory signaling. PRP cannot fix a systemic zinc deficiency, no matter how many injections you get. PRP also depends heavily on the quality of your blood. If you are deficient in zinc, iron, protein, or B vitamins, then the plasma being injected is already compromised. You're essentially recycling weak building materials back into the scalp. Zinc, on the other hand, improves the quality of the blood, the hormones, and the follicle environment from the inside out. Now let's be fair. PRP can help in certain cases, especially when combined with proper nutrition. It may improve circulation and wake up dormant follicles temporarily. But if zinc levels are low, PRP results are often short-lived. Hair growth slows again because the follicle still lacks the raw material it needs to build strong hair. Zinc deficiency is far more common than people realize, especially in individuals with digestive issues, chronic stress, high sugar intake, or frequent infections. Even mild zinc deficiency can lead to increased shedding, slower regrowth, and weakened hair shafts. So which works best? If you're looking for a short-term boost without fixing the cause, PRP may give you a temporary improvement. But if your goal is long-term hair health, stronger follicles, and sustainable regrowth, zinc addresses the foundation of the problem. The smartest approach is not choosing one over the other blindly. It's correcting zinc deficiency first, improving insulin sensitivity, reduce inflammation, and supporting the body's natural hair-building systems. Once that foundation is in place, any advanced therapy works better. Hair doesn't fail randomly. It responds to what's happening inside the body. Fix the internal signals, and the hair often follows. If you want more videos breaking down hair loss from a metabolic and nutritional perspective, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one. PRP can stimulate hair follicles temporarily, but it does not correct the underlying causes of hair loss, such as nutrient deficiencies, hormonal imbalance, inflammation, or insulin resistance, which is why results are often short-lived. To really understand this, you have to step back and look at how hair growth actually works inside the body. Hair follicles are not independent structures. They are deeply connected to your metabolism, your hormones, your immune system, and your nutritional status. When a hair follicle stops producing strong hair, it's almost never because the follicle is dead. In most cases, the follicle is alive but suppressed. Something is blocking its ability to divide rapidly and produce keratin efficiently. PRP focuses on stimulating the follicle from the outside, but it largely ignores what's happening internally. PRP works by concentrating platelets from your own blood and injecting them into the scalp. Platelets release growth factors, like platelet-derived growth factor, vascular endothelial growth factor, and transforming growth factor. These signals can temporarily increase blood flow and cellular activity around the follicle. In simple terms, PRP is like tapping the follicle on the shoulder and saying, "Wake up." And for some people, the follicle responds, at least for a while. The problem is this: if the follicle was suppressed because of zinc deficiency, chronic inflammation, elevated cortisol, high insulin, or excessive DHT sensitivity, that tap on the shoulder doesn't remove the blockage. It doesn't restore the raw materials needed for hair production. It doesn't normalize hormones. T doesn't fix insulin resistance. So once the growth factor signal fades, the follicle goes right back into it. Weakened state. One of the biggest overlooked issues is nutrient deficiency. Hair is a luxury tissue. The body does not prioritize hair growth when nutrients are scarce. If zinc, iron, protein, biotin, or B vitamins are low, the body redirects those nutrients to vital organs like the brain, heart, and immune system. PRP does not supply nutrients. It assumes the building materials are already there. If they're not, stimulation alone cannot sustain growth. Another major factor is insulin resistance. Chronically elevated insulin reduces blood flow to the scalp, increases inflammation, and raises androgen activity at the follicle level. This creates an environment where hair follicles slowly miniaturize. PRP injections do not lower insulin. They do not improve metabolic flexibility. So if insulin resistance remains, the underlying pressure on the follicle continues. Even after treatment, inflammation is another root cause PRP does not resolve. Many forms of hair loss involve low-grade, chronic inflammation around the follicle. This inflammation interferes with the hair growth cycle and shortens the anagen or growth phase. PRP may briefly improve circulation, but it does not calm systemic inflammation driven by diet, gut issues, stress, or immune imbalance. Inflammatory signals continue to disrupt follicle activity. Hormonal imbalance is also critical. DHT sensitivity. It's not just about how much DHT you have, but how sensitive the follicle is to it. This sensitivity is influenced by zinc levels, insulin, inflammation, and stress hormones. PRP does not change hormone signaling. It does not reduce excessive cortisol. It does not rebalance androgen receptors. So the hormonal pressure that weakened the follicle in the first place remains unchanged. There's also the issue of blood quality. PRP is derived from your own blood. If your blood is already low in key minerals, antioxidants, and proteins, then the plasma being injected is not optimal. You're essentially re-injecting a compromised signal back into the scalp. This is why two people can get PRP and have completely different results. The treatment is only as good as the internal environment it comes from. Another point people rarely discuss is repetition. PRP is not a one-time fix. It requires multiple sessions, often spaced months apart. Why? Because the effect wears off. Growth factor signaling is temporary by nature. If PRP truly fixed the cause of hair loss, repeated injections would not be necessary. The need for ongoing treatments is evidence that the root problem has not been resolved. Stress also plays a huge role. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, which directly suppresses hair growth and pushes follicles into the shedding phase. PRP does nothing to lower stress hormones. If anything, the procedure itself can add stress to the body without addressing sleep quality, nervous system balance, and stress adaptation. Hair follicles remain under constant pressure. Another limitation is that PRP mainly targets the scalp, but hair loss is often a whole body issue. Gut health, liver detoxification, thyroid function, and micronutrient absorption all influence hair growth. If zinc absorption is poor due to low stomach acid or gut inflammation, PRP injections won't fix that. The follicle may receive a signal to grow, but the supply chain is still broken. This is why PRP results are often described as modest or inconsistent. Some people see reduced shedding for a few months. Some see slightly thicker hair. Others see no meaningful change at all. And many people notice that once treatments stop, hair loss resumes. That pattern tells you something important. Stimulation alone is not enough. Think of it like trying to build a house. PRP is like hiring a foreman who shouts, "Build faster." But if there's not enough wood, nails, or bricks on the site, the workers can't keep building. Zinc, protein, and other nutrients are the actual materials. Without them, No amount of signaling can sustain construction. This doesn't mean PRP is useless. It means it's incomplete when used alone. PRP may help circulation and temporarily activate follicles that are already well nourished. But for someone with underlying deficiencies or metabolic dysfunction, it's like pressing the gas pedal while the fuel tank is empty. The body always follows hierarchy. Survival first, hair last, until death. Internal environment signals safety, abundance, and balance. Hair growth will not be prioritized. PRP does not send that signal. Nutrition, metabolic health, and hormone balance do. This is why addressing root causes must come first. Correcting zinc deficiency, stabilizing blood sugar, reducing inflammation, improving digestion, and lowering chronic stress change the entire environment in which hair follicles exist. When that environment improves, follicles often begin to recover on their own without invasive procedures. So when people ask why PRP results don't last, the answer is simple. The treatment stimulates, but it does not rebuild. It activates, but it does not nourish. And hair growth, more than almost any other process, depends on deep, consistent internal support. If you don't fix what weakened the follicle in the first place, no external treatment can permanently override that signal. Hair always tells the truth about what's happening inside the body. Zinc is essential for hair growth because it supports keratin production, DNA replication, immune balance, and natural DHA regulation at the follicle level. And when you really understand how zinc works in the body, it becomes clear why it addresses the root biologic processes needed for strong, lasting hair rather than offering a temporary cosmetic effect. Hair is made primarily of keratin, a tough structure protein. Producing keratin is not a passive process. It requires enzymes, proper gene expression, and rapid cell division. Zinc is a required cofactor for hundreds of enzymes in the body, many of which are directly involved in protein synthesis and cell replication. Without adequate zinc, the body simply cannot manufacture keratin efficiently. The result is hair that grows more slowly, becomes thinner over time, and breaks more easily. Hair follicles are among the fastest dividing cells in the human body. Rapid cell division means high nutrient demand. Zinc plays a critical role in DNA replication and RNA transcription. If zinc levels are low, cell division slows down. When that happens in the hair follicle, the growth phase shortens and the resting or shedding phase becomes more dominant. This is one of the main reasons zinc deficiency is strongly associated with diffuse shedding and chronic hair thinning. Another key role of zinc is immune regulation. Many people don't realize that a large percentage of hair loss cases involve immune imbalance and chronic, low-grade inflammation around the follicle. Even when hair loss does not appear autoimmune on the surface, inflammatory signaling can quietly disrupt the hair cycle. Zinc acts as an immune stabilizer. It helps regulate cytokines, supports proper immune cell function, and prevents excessive inflammatory responses that damage follicles. When zinc is low, the immune stem becomes dysregulated. Inflammation increases and hair follicles become collateral damage. This is especially important in conditions where the scalp is itchy, sensitive, or prone to irritation. Zinc helps calm this environment, allowing follicles to remain in the growth phase longer. Zinc is also deeply involved in hormone regulation, especially when it comes to DHA. DHA is often blamed as the main cause of hair loss, but the real issue is not just the presence of DHT, it's how the follicle responds to it. Zinc helps regulate the enzyme 5-alpha reductase, which converts testosterone into DHA. Zinc does not completely shut this enzyme down, which is important because DHT has normal functions in the body. Instead, zinc helps keep this process balanced. This natural modulation is very different from drug-based approaches that aggressively block DHT and often come with side effects. Zinc supports a healthier hormonal environment at the follicle level, reducing excessive DHT signaling while preserving normal hormonal function. Another overlooked role of zinc is its impact on oil production and scalp health. Zinc helps regulate sebaceous glands. When zinc is deficient, oil production can become excessive or imbalanced, leading to clogged follicles and an unhealthy scalp environment. A congested follicle struggles to produce strong hair. Zinc helps maintain a clean, balanced scalp that supports healthy growth. Zinc is also essential for antioxidant defense. Hair follicles are highly sensitive to oxidative stress. Free radicals damage follicle cells and accelerate miniaturization. Zinc is a component of antioxidant enzymes that protect cells from oxidative damage. Without enough zinc, follicles age faster and lose their regenerative capacity. Digestion and absorption play a major role here as well. Many people consume enough zinc on paper, but still develop deficiency due to poor absorption. Low stomach acid, gut inflammation, frequent antacid use, high stress, and diets high in refined carbohydrates all interfere with zinc absorption. This means zinc deficiency can exist even when someone believes they are eating well. Stress further compounds the problem. Chronic stress increases zinc excretion through urine and depletes zinc stores. At the same time, stress hormones directly suppress hair growth. This creates a double hit to the follicle. Zinc helps buffer stress responses and supports adrenal and nervous system function, indirectly protecting hair growth. One of the most important concepts to understand is that zinc deficiency doesn't always show up clearly on standard blood tests. Blood zinc levels are tightly regulated, so the body will maintain them at the expense of tissues like hair. This means you can have normal blood zinc and still have zinc deficiency at the follicle level. Hair loss is often one of the earliest visible signs that zinc is running low. Zinc also interacts with other nutrients critical for hair, including copper, iron, vitamin A, and B vitamins. Proper balance is key. Zinc helps mobilize vitamin A from the liver, which is important for epithelial tissue health, including the scalp. It also supports iron utilization, which is necessary for oxygen delivery to the follicle. When zinc is low, these systems begin to break down together. Another important function of zinc is its role in wound healing and tissue repair. Hair follicles undergo constant micro-repair as they cycle through growth and rest phases. Zinc supports this repair process. Without it, follicles struggle to recover from normal wear and tear, leading to gradual miniaturization. Zinc deficiency is surprisingly common worldwide. Modern diets are often low in zinc-rich foods, and soil depletion has reduced mineral content in many crops. High sugar intake further worsens the issue because sugar increases zinc loss and promotes insulin resistance, which indirectly harms hair follicles. This is why zinc addresses hair loss at a foundational level. It doesn't just stimulate follicles, it rebuilds the biological machinery required for hair growth. It supports enzymes, hormones, immune balance, antioxidant protection, and tissue repair simultaneously. When zinc levels are restored, the body receives a signal of nutritional adequacy. This shifts the body out of survival mode and into repair and regeneration mode. Hair growth becomes a priority again because the internal environment supports it. This is also why zinc works slow, but steadily. Hair growth is not immediate. Follicles need time to cycle back into the growth phase, rebuild structure, and produce stronger strands. Zinc supports this process naturally without forcing the follicle or overriding the body's signals. Unlike external procedures, zinc works from the inside out. It improves the quality of the follicle, not just its activity. And when the follicle is healthy, hair growth becomes more resilient and sustainable. In the context of long-term hair health, zinc is not optional, it is fundamental. Without it, no treatment can deliver consistent results. With it, the body regains its ability to grow hair the way it was designed to. Long-term hair regrowth depends on fixing internal deficiencies first, especially zinc, because even advanced treatments like PRP work poorly when the body lacks the raw materials required to build and maintain healthy hair. This is the part almost no one talks about, and yet it explains why so many people spend years chasing treatments with disappointing results. Hair growth is not controlled by the scalp alone. It is controlled by the body's internal decision-making system. The body constantly evaluates whether conditions are safe and abundant enough to invest energy into non-essential tissues. Hair is one of the last priorities. If the body senses deficiency, stress, or imbalance, hair growth is downregulated automatically. No matter what you do externally, this is why internal deficiencies matter more than any procedure. A hair follicle cannot override the body's survival logic. If zinc is low, protein intake is insufficient, blood sugar is unstable, or inflammation is high, the follicle receives a clear signal to conserve energy. Advanced therapies may temporarily stimulate the follicle, but they cannot force long-term growth. Against that internal signal, zinc sits at the center of this hierarchy. It is involved in cellular division, immune regulation, hormonal imbalance, antioxidant defense, and tissue repair. When zinc is deficient, the body enters a subtle conservation mode. Resources are redirected away from hair production toward essential systems like immunity and metabolism. This shift can happen even with mild deficiency long before severe symptoms appear. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming that advanced treatments can compensate for poor internal conditions. PRP, laser therapy, topical agents, and even medications rely on the follicle's ability to respond. But responsiveness depends on internal nutrient status. If zinc is low, enzymes do not function properly. DNA replication slows. Protein synthesis weakens. Growth signals cannot be executed efficiently. Think of it like this. PRP may deliver the instruction to grow, but zinc is part of the machinery that actually carries out that instruction. Without the machinery, the instruction goes nowhere. This is why people often see early improvement with treatments and then hit a plateau. The internal system simply cannot sustain the demand. Another critical factor is insulin resistance. Chronically elevated insulin reduces nutrient delivery to peripheral tissues, including the scalp. Even if zinc intake is adequate, insulin resistance can impair zinc transport into cells. This creates a functional deficiency at the follicle level. Until insulin sensitivity improves, hair follicles remain undernourished. Inflammation compounds the problem further. Chronic inflammation increases nutrient demand while simultaneously impairing absorption and utilization. Zinc is consumed rapidly during inflammatory states because it is needed for immune regulation and antioxidant defense. If inflammation is ongoing, zinc stores are drained continuously. In this context, hair growth becomes impossible to maintain. Stress adds another layer. Chronic stress increases zinc loss and elevates cortisol, which directly suppresses hair growth. Cortisol shortens the growth phase of the hair cycle and pushes follicles into shedding. No external treatment lowers cortisol. Only internal correction through nutrition, sleep, and nervous system balance can do that. This explains why long-term hair regrowth always follows a predictable pattern. First, shedding stabilizes. Then the scalp environment improves. Then hair texture gradually strengthens. Only after that does visible density improve. External treatments often skip the first steps and try to force the last one. Another overlooked issue is absorption. Many people take supplements but fail to absorb them properly. Low stomach acid, gut inflammation, frequent antacid use, and poor bile flow all impairs zinc absorption. If zinc is not absorbed, it cannot reach the follicle. No amount of topical or injectable therapy can fix a broken digestive pipeline. This is why internal correction must come first. Restoring zinc status improves digestion, immune balance, and metabolic function simultaneously. As these systems normalize, nutrient delivery to the follicle improves naturally. Blood flow improves. Inflammation decreases. Hormonal signaling stabilizes. Hair follicles finally receive consistent support. Advanced treatments only work well in this context. When internal deficiencies are corrected, PRP results become more noticeable and longer lasting. Not because PRP suddenly became better, but because the follicle is finally capable of responding properly. Another key point is sustainability. Hair growth is a long-term process. A single hair strand takes years to fully mature. That means the internal environment must remain supportive for years, not weeks. Zinc deficiency that fluctuates will lead to inconsistent growth. Stable zinc levels support stable hair cycles. This is also why quick fixes fail. Hair growth cannot be rushed. Forcing stimulation without rebuilding internal capacity leads to burnout at the follicle level. The follicle may respond briefly, then shut down again because it cannot sustain the demand. The body always favors efficiency. When internal deficiencies are corrected, hair growth becomes efficient rather than forced. The follicle no longer needs aggressive stimulation because it naturally enters and stays in the growth phase. This principle applies to all hair loss patterns. Diffuse shedding, pattern thinning, stress-related hair loss, and age-related thinning all improve when internal deficiencies are corrected. The trigger may differ, but the solution always TS internally. Zinc also works synergistically with other corrections, stabilizing blood sugar, increasing protein intake, improving sleep, and reducing inflammation amplifies zinc's effect. Together, these changes send a powerful signal of abundance to the body. Hair growth becomes a logical outcome rather than a struggle. This is why people who fix internal deficiencies often notice improvements beyond hair. Skin quality improves, nails strengthen, energy increases. Immune resilience improves. These changes confirm that the body has shifted into a regenerative state. Hair loss is never isolated. It is a reflection of internal status. When zinc and other deficiencies are corrected, hair regrowth is not forced, it is permitted, and that distinction matters. External treatments try to override the system. Internal correction works with it. One approach fights biology. The other restores it if long-term regrowth is the goal. The priority must always be internal correction first. Zinc is not optional in that process. It is foundational. Once the foundation is restored, everything else works better, or may not even be needed at all. Hair always follows health. When the body has what it needs, hair growth is no longer something you have to chase. It becomes a natural expression of internal balance. So when it comes down to PRP versus zinc, the real question is, to which treatment sounds more advanced? It's which one actually fixes the reason hair is thinning in the first place. Croc. Edgers can stimulate, but they can't replace what the body is missing. Hair follicles respond best when the internal environment is stable, nourished, and balanced. Correct the deficiencies, especially zinc, improve metabolic health, and reduce inflammation, and hair growth often follows naturally. Always focus on the foundation first, because when the body has what it needs, the scalp no longer has to struggle to grow hair.